Let's jump into Q&A. Okay, all right, so we got first question. Limit Zero asks, hey, Dennis, at the moment I'm prospecting in frozen and refrigerated foods, but I feel that it's hard to find enough potential leads among those participating in biddings. So I'm thinking about prospecting in heavy haul. What do you think about it? Well, I'm a big believer in riches are in niches. So I like to hear that you're niche down. I don't know the size of your business. I don't know how long you've been doing this. I don't know how many customers you have. I don't know what your funnel looks like, your sales funnel looks like from refrigerated. Doesn't sound like it's very robust. And I'm not quite sure what you mean by participating in bidding. I'm not a big bid guy. I'm much more of a develop a relationship with the prospect and then do quotes that are specific to whatever their needs are in the spot market. Annual bids are, in a lot of cases, particularly now, are almost a waste of time. You do have to do them sometimes, but I think the spot market is a much better place for us to be, right? As brokers, it's much more realistic because you don't control the buy and sell of trucks, right? Of truck of per mile rate. So here's what I'm going to say to you. I like that you're niche down. I'd like to see you stay focused in that niche. If you've already gotten some good traction, if you are not getting any traction, I'd find out what are the top 2 or 3 reasons why you think you're not getting that. I know you mentioned one, because you don't have enough leads that are participating in bidding. I'm not sure that bidding is the key, right? I don't know what your sales process looks like, but if you're not getting the results you're looking for, diversifying into another niche or trying another niche, if you're a startup, is not a bad thing, right? But I don't want you to bounce from niche to niche to niche to niche just because you're not getting the results. I think the bigger problem usually is not the niche, it's the process. It's not the niche, it's the strategy. It's not the niche, it's the fact that you haven't optimized your sales process, right? Maybe your cold call is off. Maybe you sound like everybody else. Maybe you're not, maybe you're not talking to the right people. Maybe there's a variety of things that can go wrong there in that sales process. Maybe you don't know how to handle objections properly. I don't mind going into other niches. This is a long answer, but I'm trying to frame it for you in such a way that it has value for you and the audience. As far as heavy haul, going into a heavy haul niche, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you don't have a fair amount of experience in heavy haul, or you haven't taken a lot of time to study heavy haul, or you don't have a carrier base that can really help you, that you have a strong relationship in with heavy haul, I would be very, very careful using that as a startup niche, right? If you're brand new, going into heavy haul can be very challenging because it has a whole different level of complexity compared to refrigerated or even flatbed, or even particularly van, right? I like, as you grow in business, I like adding some complexity. I like trying to find complex problems because I think it allows you to stand out. Obviously, eliminate some of the crowd, some of the competition. But as a startup, be very careful with just joining or jumping into the heavy haul space because it's a lot more nuanced. There's a lot of things that can go wrong there, okay? So I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope it frames it in such a way that you can get some value out of it. Question from Robert. I'm finding a lot of trainings for finding freight shippers. How do I find drivers and what to look out for? Okay. So finding carriers, if you're a startup broker or a startup agent, most of your carriers are going to come from load boards. Okay. Because the carriers that you are going to be using are specific to the shippers that you are prospecting. So what I mean by that is this. Some people think it's best to go out and get a bunch of carriers on board and then try to find customers that you can use, that you can place those loads into those carriers. But in a lot of cases, that doesn't work because carriers have specific types of equipment and specific lanes and specific backhauls and specific needs, right? So I'm a big believer in finding the shipper first, identifying that shipper in the niche that you have, and then leveraging what their needs are to recruit and source carriers, whether that be through a load board or a directory or whatever, right? So that's usually how most startup brokers get their first carriers. But here's the cool part. Once you bring on a carrier, your goal is not to just use that carrier one time. You want to start reusing that carrier every time, as long as they did a good job, on those specific types of equipment in those specific lanes or in areas where they need or want help. Okay. So your goal is not to bring on a new carrier every single time you move a load, but as a new broker, you have to develop relationships somewhere. And the most valuable relationships are the ones that can service your customer now. If I have a customer that moves Conestoga trailers out of California and all my shippers are in Florida, it's useless to have that relationship right now, right? I can't bring any value to them. They can't bring any value to me. But if I source some Conestoga trailers out of Florida based on load boards or load board history or some online resources, now all of a sudden we can immediately start helping and benefiting one another. So I hope that helps. Question from Michael 46. Hey, Dennis, currently have a customer that's been behind with our invoices for several months, consistently making late payments. How would you approach this annoying situation? Well, first of all, when you bring on a new customer, okay, and you establish credit, you move that first load and you invoice them. What you need to do when you invoice them, you need to reach out to them and you need to set the proper expectations. Number one, you need to make sure that you build them properly and that they have everything they need. Sometimes there are special documentations or special, pickup numbers and different things that they need in order to process the load. So you want to make sure that you did it properly. You need to set expectations with them and let them know what you expect in regards to payment. So that's number one. Number two, squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So if they're paying you late and they're paying you in 50 days or 45 days and you need to get paid in 30 or 35 days, you need to start ringing that bell sooner. You need to start calling them at 30 days, at 32 days, right? You need to call them a little earlier or email them a little earlier, communicate with them earlier, because again, the rule of thumb when it comes to getting paid is the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So you do have to be squeaky. And in most cases, if you are that squeaky wheel, you will be able to cut off 2, 3, 5, sometimes 10 days on their payment cycle just because you are there, because you are standing in line and you're reminding them that you need to be paid. So those are probably the two biggest things. The next thing is, here's what you have to understand. If they start getting beyond 60 days, here's what I'm going to tell you. I refuse to do business personally. And there may be opinions vary, mileage varies. I absolutely positively refuse to do business with any shipper that's going to pay me beyond 60 days. My goal is to get paid somewhere between 30 and 45 days, and that's the goal. But if they get to 60, in my personal opinion, they go on credit hold. Okay, that's just the way it is. I'm not a bank. Okay, I'm in a low margin, high volume business, and I have costs and cash flow is king. So here's what I can tell you. Don't entertain anybody that's doing business with you at 60 days. You have to be, it's going to scare the shit out of you the first time you have to put a customer on credit hold because you think you're going to lose the customer. And you may, but the reality is if you have done those other things and they're still not paying you, there's an issue, right? There's an issue. And if they value what you're providing for them and they value the relationship, they will prioritize you in the payment scheme. Because again, trust me, they will stretch payment out as long as they possibly can. All right. So take a few of those tips. I hope that helps. Okay. Question from Luke. Hey, Dennis, what are your insights on bringing spot rates to drop trailer segments as we all see nowadays? There's only two ways you can do that, right? Number one, you either need to own trailers, which some brokers decide they want to invest in trailers, or you need to find a carrier that has a pool of trailers or, close proximity, maybe where they're going to do a drop and hook, right? A drop and hook is, they bring a trailer in, they pick a trailer up, they bring a trailer in, they pick a trailer up. And while they're gone, that other one gets filled and it's a drop and hook, right? Depending upon how many trailers they need. I think that you can work in the spot market on drop trailers. I'm processing it right now from the freight rate, right? Because you can establish what the cost of the trailer for dropping the trailer is. That's fairly fixed. That's not going to change too much in the spot market. What's going to change is the freight rate for moving it from point A to point B. So you may have to do a weekly rate, right? Or a short-term rate of some sort, maybe 1 to 2 weeks, give them some sort of a guarantee of 1 to 2 weeks on the spot market rate. You can kind of fix the cost of the trailer on the longer term, or you can just build it all into one rate, depending upon how you want it or how the customer wants it, if they want to break it out. So yeah, I think you can do spot market drop trailer. Absolutely. Now, it's going to be as volatile with your customer as the rates are volatile. If the rates go up a bunch in 1 week to the next, well, then you're going to have to sell that value and explain why. If those rates go down and they're looking for a rate reduction, then you need to be prepared for that, right? So spot market creates a little bit more work, but it also protects you from losing money, right? On loads where the market volatility can have an issue. So if you start doing spot markets with a 7 or 14 days, typically you're not going to run into a lot of problems. There are exceptions to that, but yeah, I think that's very possible. But make sure you dot all the I's, cross the T's. Okay. Good question. Thanks, Luke. Question from Kim. A factoring company would assist with the late payment issues. Yes, they will. They will for sure. But remember something. If you're working with a factoring company, right, and they're advancing the money to the carrier and they're waiting for the shipper to pay them, yes, they have some skin in the game. Yes, they want to get paid. Yes, they want to continue the relationship with you as the broker. The problem comes in is that most factoring companies are recourse, which means that if the shipper doesn't pay them, it falls back on you, the broker, and they're going to charge you back. Very common, okay? There are recourse and non-recourse factoring. Now, what determines it? There's a lot more recourse factoring, meaning they want recourse to be able to go back to you and charge it. The rates are lower on recourse, and there are less non-recourse factoring, and the rates are higher, right? So it depends upon you. I don't have a problem with recourse factoring as long as you, the broker, are going to be willing to be the squeaky wheel, right? Yes, they are going to follow up on receivables. But when the factoring company, when you see a report and you see that the shipper is not paying the bill in a timely manner, you need to pick up that phone. You need to send that email. You need to talk to your contact, and you need to press the issue and become that squeaky wheel. Don't leave it exclusively on the factoring company, because again, they can shut credit off at any time and they can charge you back if they don't get paid. So hope that helps. Mike asks, hey, Dennis, I let my surety bond lapse. Do I need to start the whole restatement process from scratch or just pay for another bond? Your authority was, if you let the bond lapse, your authority was deactivated. You will not have to reapply or go through the application process. You can reactivate your authority. And so what you'll have to do, the first thing you're going to have to do is get that bond, and then the bonding company will reach out to the FMCSA and let them know that you now have a bond, and then you can communicate with the FMCSA about restatement, right? So the first thing, you'll get a bond, and then you'll focus and talk to them about reinstatement, because without the bond, it doesn't matter. So good question. Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure you hit the like button, right? And if you're curious about becoming a freight broker or a freight agent, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com, trained over 10,000 students, and we offer a 60-day, 100% unconditional money-back guarantee, okay?